Hello everyone, this is Mike, Plumber Mike, some people call me. Hashtag Plumber Mike, Mikey No Tools on Instagram. In any case, happy holidays to all those who celebrate whatever holiday it is that you celebrate, whether it's Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. I'm not aware of any other ones. Ramadan, but I think that's past. But anyway, it's the end of 2019. We are, just starting our winter heating season at the Pipe Doctor. And I wanted to make a video, not of a fireplace, compliments of YouTube. I just Googled fireplace 4K. You get a nice wood burning fireplace. Not of that, but of a steam boiler that if you looked, on the previous videos of a steam boiler that we replaced that was a hair over 10 years old. This right here is the new Burnham Independence SIN4. It has a gross BTU output of 105,000 BTUs, and this is the boiler that we took out. Also a Burnham SIN. This was actually an SIN5. 140,000 BTU gas-fired steam boiler. And the problem with the original boiler was a hole. That hole right there. Right in the first left cast iron block of this boiler. And let me explain to you a couple things. Number one, why this hole above the water line occurred. And B, how to prevent it. So, steam boilers, which are almost always made of cast iron material, don't like fresh oxygenated water. So if you have to add more water than what's normally necessary to a steam boiler, whether you're manually feeding it or if you have an automatic water feeder, eventually that fresh oxygen in that fresh water will cut a hole, eat a hole through the cast iron. And what will happen is, instead of steam being created inside those cast iron blocks and then being distributed through the piping on top of it, like in this picture. Right, this is your near boiler piping. This is your 2-inch pipe coming up. This is your T going up to the distribution piping. This is the equalizer going back to the left side of the boiler where it meets your Hartford loop and your wet return. All right, so instead of steam going up the piping, some of the steam, eventually the majority of it, is going to go out of that hole and up your chimney. Now, on a cold, clear day in the winter, and I see this quite frequently actually, in the metropolitan New York area, 75% of the houses are either hydronic or steam heat, and you're driving down the block in the truck and you're looking up, on a clear day, you see white smoke coming out of a chimney. White smoke. I can guarantee you, 100%, maybe 99%, but I can guarantee you, 99% that is steam, and that is steam coming from a cracked boiler. And either the homeowner knows about it or doesn't know about it. So, let's talk about reasons why this boiler failed. You have, let's say you have a leak in a wet return. And again, I'm not going to go into specifics, and you have an automatic feeder. And the automatic feeder is adding water, maybe a few times a week, maybe a few times a day. But ideally, In a perfect world, a steam boiler, in a perfect world. Now, there's going to be guys who comment down below. In a perfect world, the boiler will never have to need any water because it's not going to evaporate away and it'll last the whole season. But on average, your steam boiler in a regular system that's maintained properly, the pressure's not set too high, 1 psi or under, half a psi on the pressure control, ideally, and everything is good and working order, you'll add water once a month, ideally. And that's why we advocate for a manual feed valve, a ball valve, to manually add water. I'm not a fan of automatic water feeders because you don't know how much water the boiler is taking. Unless you add one with a water meter built into it, or you add an external water meter to calculate how much water the boiler is taking. So on average, when we install a boiler, we tell our customers, listen, once a month, you're going to drain the boiler in the water. I'm sorry, drain the boiler in the water. Drain the water in the boiler. You put a 5-gallon bucket under the right-hand side where there's a hose spigot coming out of the side of the boiler, and you remove the dirty water from the boiler, and you make sure the low water light comes on. If it doesn't, it's an urgency. It's not an emergency. And then you refill the boiler back where it should. That is what a homeowner should be doing. But in this particular case, this homeowner, he bought the house, I think he said about 15 years ago. Oh, this is annoying behind there. Let's close that. Back to there. He said he bought the house about 15 years ago. Shortly after he bought it, he converted from oil to gas. And the entire time, up until like a couple years ago, the steam, the radiators, the steam radiator air valves, the little silver things, people call them air vents. They're not vents, they're valves. Those steam radiator air valves, every time the boiler's running, every single one of his air valves in his house went like this. Sorry, but the entire time the boiler was running. And the pressure control was set to 5 psi. All right, so you have tremendous 5 times the amount of pressure the system needs, and it's constantly losing water because it's out of each radiator air valve. He thought it was normal. So guess what happens? 10 years and I think 3 months after that boiler was installed, this is what it looks like now. Right? We took it apart last week. Right? And we started this job at 7:45 in the morning. Right? And at 11:06, we were cleaning up. The system's running, and we fired up. With a total of myself, my A mechanic, and an apprentice/helper. We were in the trucks, rolling down the block at 11 a.m. Not wanting to brag at all, but. So, the purpose of this video is to stress the importance of, if you have a steam boiler, you want to make sure that you know how much water is taking in. Because if you don't, you will run into a problem like this, which will result in a very large transfer of funds, currency, from somebody to us, whether it's you or your bank, your credit card, someone to us, because we will be taking a lot of it. No exaggeration. Okay? Good quality isn't cheap, and cheap isn't good quality. So, if you have a steam boiler, you got questions, feel free to drop them down in the comments section down below. If you're in our service territory and you're tired of a rinky-dink, your plumber who you think is good, not really know what he's doing, you have steam issues, you have banging sounds coming from your steam piping when the steam is on. That is water violently exploding when steam hits it. Why is there water in the pipes? It shouldn't be. If you got water pouring out of the vents, whether they're the furthest ones from the boiler or the closest ones to the boilers, and I did say vents, my apologies, steam radiator air valves. If you have water pouring out of them or some water dripping out of them and your plumber already replaced it a couple times, the problem is not the air valve on the radiator. It's something totally different. Usually a clogged wet return. We know steam. We're not 100% experts on them. I'm not going to pat myself on the back and lie and say, hey, we're the greatest thing since sliced bread, but we know steam very well. Our office is in Valley Stream, New York, and the majority of the homes around our office in Valley Stream, Rosedale, Laurelton, Malvern, Lynbrook, even some of Elmont, the majority of the homes have steam, believe it or not, still. And we put in about 24 steam boilers a season as replacement. So if you got steam, you need a steam professional, look no further and call us. Thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful day and happy holidays.